Most people know better than to explore the deep web, but curiosity can lead to disturbing places. Story 1. The glow of the monitor was the only light in my apartment, casting long, jittery shadows against the peeling wallpaper. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just the usual midnight descent into the archives of the deep web. I had the Tor browser running, a glass of lukewarm coffee at my elbow, and a growing sense of boredom. That was until I clicked a link on a text-based bridgeboard. It led to a site with no name, just a black screen and a single chat box in the center, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Don't look behind you," the first message read. It came from a user named null_void. I let out a sharp, cynical laugh. "Classic," I muttered, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I typed, "Is this supposed to be scary?" The reply was instantaneous. "It's supposed to be accurate. You keep your webcam covered with a piece of tape thinking it's enough, but you leave your door unlocked when you go to check the mail." My breath hitched. I lived alone, and I was notoriously paranoid about security, but the mail comment was a coincidence. It had to be. I typed back, "Nice guess. Who is this?" "I'm the one who noticed you've stopped sleeping." The screen blinked. "I'm the one who watches the buffer wheel spin while you search for ways to disappear." A cold prickle of sweat traced my spine. I reached for the power button on my tower, but the screen flickered, bypassing my command. A new image loaded. It was a grainy, low-light photograph of my living room, taken from a perspective near the ceiling in the corner. In the frame, I sat hunched over the keyboard, looking small and fragile in the dark. It wasn't a file I had downloaded. It was a live feed. I stood up so abruptly my chair clattered to the floor. I spun around, scanning the corners of the room. Nothing. Just the hum of the hard drive and the oppressive silence of the night. I looked back at the monitor. The chat box had updated again. "You're checking the corners. You're looking for a camera that isn't really there. The feed isn't coming from your hardware, Elias. It's coming from your history. You searched for the Red Room archive 6 months ago. You reached for the void, and now the void is cataloging you." I reached to yank the Ethernet cord from the wall, but my hand froze. My own desktop wallpaper, a simple forest path, had changed. It was now a photograph of my front door, taken from the inside of my apartment, time-stamped 30 seconds ago. The handle of my real-life front door creaked. I didn't turn around. I couldn't move. On the screen, the text cursor blinked rhythmically, waiting. "Don't worry," the screen read. "You're not the audience anymore, you're the content." The handle turned fully. The door clicked open. Story 2. I've always been a skeptic. I'm a system administrator by trade, the sort of guy who wipes a hard drive clean before handing a machine to anyone else, and who can, with a few keystrokes, confirm whether a packet ever left his network. That's why the night I decided to go deep felt like a joke I could test with a virtual machine and a piece of Tor's default configuration. It started on a rainy Thursday, the kind where the city's neon lights bleed into the puddles, and the only thing keeping me awake is the hum of my own computer fans. I was sifting through a subreddit about unlisted .onion sites when a user named Zero Day posted a single line. "The mirror isn't a site, it's a reflection. 5F5Z6V3E62XP7P6Y.onion. No description, no flake bait, just a link and a cryptic comment that looked like a meme-sized PGP signature. I launched Tails, spun up a new Tor circuit, and entered the address. The Onion resolved to a plain HTML page. No ads, no JavaScript, just a black background and a single looping GIF of a hallway. The camera angle was shaky, like a phone being held by someone who didn't want to be seen. Midway through the loop, a man's hand entered the frame. He lifted a reflective surface, a cheap mirror, and held it up to the camera. The reflection showed a dimly lit room, but the corner of a bed, a cracked picture frame, a dried stain on the carpet, things that didn't exist in my apartment. The GIF froze. Below it, in tiny monospaced text, a prompt appeared. Type yes to see the next frame. I typed. The GIF continued, now showing the man's face for a fraction of a second before he turned away. He didn't look at the camera. His eyes seemed fixed on something behind me. My reflection on the monitor glanced back at me, but the image was blurred, as if I were moving too fast. I closed the browser, but the loop stayed in my mind. I told myself it was a troll, an art project, a simple glitch. Yet as the night deepened, the sounds from the hallway and the GIF were unmistakable. The low creak of floorboards, a distant cough. I heard a muffled thud downstairs, a sound I was sure I had never heard in my own building before. The next day I tried to delete the Tails VM, but the .onion address kept appearing in my browsing history, even after I cleared everything. My terminal threw an error. Cannot locate .onion. When I checked the syslog, there was a line I'd never written. User 0 day, connected from 127.0.0.1. The IP was my own loopback. Paranoia grew like a virus. Every time I opened a new tab, the same black background popped up for a split second before the page loaded. The mirrors appeared in the code of unrelated sites, a tiny HTML comment. Look behind you. Hidden inside a blog about gardening. I started seeing a reflection of my own desk in the wall, even when the lights were off. I posted on the same subreddit, asking if anyone else had experienced this. No replies. Only one private message arrived, encrypted with the PGP key posted in the first GIF. The decryption key was, listen. I listened to the sound of my own breathing, to the ticking of my watch, to the hum of the fans. The fans slowed. The monitor flickered, showing the hallway again, but now the mirror was empty. No hand, no man, just my own empty apartment reflected back, though the hallway's dim light never existed here. I shut down the computer, unplugged it, and sat in the dark. The only thing I could hear was the faint echo of a click, something being pressed somewhere on the dark web. A voice, faint as breath, seemed to say, "You're in the mirror now." I grabbed the flashlight on my desk, turned it on, and watched the beam dance across the wall. For a fraction of a second, the beam caught something that wasn't there. A ripple, like glass, distorting the darkness. The flashlight flickered, and I realized the room was no longer empty. The mirror, my living room, had become a portal, and the strange anonymous user was no longer just a name on a post. He was a reflection that now stared back, waiting for me to click yes.